So one of the things that I wanted to talk about on today's show too was, again, as we talk about the heavy topics, because as I said earlier, these guys have an ability to have a nice back and forth on some very serious topics. And I think that the guys handled themselves well, especially Mike, when Oscar picked the scab of whether or not he was familiar enough with gay people.
Now I lost my train of thought because I'm being so challenged.
You're not being challenged.
Stop challenging me.
I'm asking you how open you are to the gay lifestyle, how exposed you are.
Why are you going down this road? Of course
because
I'm open.
You're the
dude. Before you were diapers, yeah. I was inclusive and I was bringing people on my show. So I actually remember fighting battles about having a gay character and having Cheryl the Big Dyke come up to me on the street and say, you know what? The gay community understands the humor, and thank you for that. And it's been a love affair ever since.
It's completely different than what I'm talking about right now.
Okay, but
when you're talking about strong sexual content in the gay community, have you ever had a conversation with a man about actually sitting there and all the weird things they're into? That's what we've done. I've done that before.
Probably seriously before you were born.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, probably before you were born. I had
Are you saying that resulted in his birth?
No, I told a story. If you guys listen, I told a story the other day about one of my many wives who had a guy that she worked close with. As a matter of fact, it was her assistant where she worked, and we went out and I sat down for about an hour and really just went back and forth about that subject. So the answer is yes. Let me finish my point. What the point I wanted to make was that I've always believed, there are people that I think are bigots in this country that will say this is learned behavior, that you can ungay somebody, you can send them to a camp and do that.
Horrible people.
So at the same time, I've met gay men that, when you bring up heterosexuality with them, there are many gay men that'll say, oh God, not my cup of tea. I think a lot of heterosexual men react like maybe some of us did in this room, where you see that and you're kind of reacting as like, oh, not my cup of tea.
Right.
That's, to me, what says this is a biological way. This is a way that we are programmed. This is a way that
I agree.
This is the way we're put together when we come out of the womb. I really believe that. So with that said, watching that content during the Liberace show, the Candelabra, it was very, very Behind the Candelabra.
They should have called it the Liberace
show. The point
show.
I was making was I was like, oh, and you're repelled by it, just like many gay men are repelled by sexuality between men and women.
Matt, did you catch the program?
Yes, I did.
What did you think?
This is the heavy issue. But I think Mike was right on point. It's one thing to be accepting of something, and a whole other thing to have to, have it thrown in your face and see it, and it kind of reminds me. I remember talking to one of my gay friends one time, and I was joking because there was we're watching TV and there was like Megan Fox or somebody, I don't even remember who, but it was a very hot celebrity, and I was like, how can you look at that and tell me that you wouldn't want to get with that? And he looked at me and he said, and I can't remember the example he used. He said, if I said the same thing to you while Vin Diesel or somebody or John Hamm or somebody was like on the screen, what would your response be? And I would be like, oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, those are I mean, I guess Oscar was picking at the scab, but I think Mike sealed the scab up and explained himself. I think it's perfectly reasonable to say, look, I don't really want to see that, but I'm, completely accepting of two people who want to do that.
No, absolutely. Again, I think this is a good example. The guys watched an entertainment program, and it led to a pretty interesting discussion. And yeah, there was some scab picking, but I agree with you. Mike handled it really well, and I think Mike said what needed to be said. And if you don't agree with it, again, you're probably not going to be watching the program anyway. And secondly, if you don't get it, I don't know how you ever will. The thing about it is that I have gay friends, and I'm not gay, and I did watch the program. And yes, there were moments where I was like, okay, not quite my cup of tea. But, that's why I have eyelids. I don't have to see every moment either. I can choose not to. And but I appreciate, and that's why I wanted to play this clip. Again, I appreciate that TMOS can have that discussion, and it can be meaningful, and at the same time continue to be entertaining at the same time. So
yeah, and did you think that Liberace impression was a total home run like I did?
Honestly, I don't have enough background with Liberace outside of, because I was a kid. And so for me, I remember the flamboyance, but I did feel comfortable with Michael Douglas playing Liberace.
Mm-hmm.
My issue was the fact that I thought there was so much makeup done that I had a hard time believing they were who they were. It wasn't necessarily how they presented themselves. It was just a matter of their makeup was so, it was just caked on in such a way that it was ridiculous. But
I meant the impression Mike did.
Oh, yes.
He was actually hurting his face to do it. That was another moment where I almost wrecked my car because I was laughing so hard.